So in the next section of this chart, they're showing us the relationship of phases to processes and process groups. And what they're really saying is that in every phase, we're using processes from all 5 process groups. So there are no standards for the phases, right? We've been through that. We've hit that one hard. You can have as many phases as you want. You could have 1 phase, 3 phases, 7 phases, 15 phases. No standards for the number of phases. And you can name your phases whatever you want to. The standards kick in with the project management lifecycle, with defining the use of the processes within phases. And there's really 2 standards for this. What I just said, in every phase, we're using processes from all 5 process groups. And also the next standard is for PMI, if we're worthy of the PMP, we're using every one of these 49 processes at one point, and many of the processes more than one time. So every process is used at least once, and most perhaps, are used more than once. That's the second standard. So this is the project management lifecycle. A lot of people get confused. They think these 5 process groups, the process group names, are just synonyms or names for phases. The process groups are really phases, and it kind of sounds like that, doesn't it? It almost sounds like a waterfall cascade of phases, that you're first going to initiate the project, get that all squared away, then plan out your project completely. Once you've got all the plans done, then you're going to execute against those plans. And then you're going to go to monitoring and controlling. I guess that's supposed to be testing. And then finally, wrap everything up with closing. So 5 phases and a cascade waterfall of these 5 phases. But that is not what the process groups mean. And actually, processes in the process groups are used inside phases. And you might say, what? How are we doing that? Well, we're not just only initiating the project with develop charter, kicking off the project, getting it all authorized with develop charter. We must also initiate each phase. We should get each new phase authorized. And similarly, we don't just close out the project in a formal, orderly way and close project. The process is called close project or phase. So we close out each phase in a formal way. We're doing a subset of close project. We're archiving records for the phase. We're doing a lessons learned for the phase. We're doing a subset of close project in each phase. We're executing in each phase. That's necessary. Why? Because we have to create deliverables in each phase. Therefore, we have to execute in a phase to create those deliverables. So that's clear in the middle phases, the executing phases, that we're creating deliverables, widgets. But why are we executing? What are we creating in the early planning phases? Well, we've been through this before. What are we creating? Plans, documents, blueprints, specifications. Those are deliverables. So even in our early planning phases, we're executing to create those documents. And if we're executing, we're necessarily doing monitoring and controlling. We're always testing the heartbeat. We're checking to see, are we on budget? Are we on schedule? Are we meeting scope? Are we meeting quality? What's our progress? What's our forecast? So we're doing that from beginning to end. That's monitoring, controlling. That's occurring in all phases. So I've hit 4 of the process groups and tried to explain why they're being used in every phase. And the last one is planning. Well, everybody can recognize that it makes sense. We're doing planning up front in the early planning phases, but why would we be doing planning at the end of the project, towards the end of the project? Why do we need to do planning then? 2 reasons. We're always looking for ways to do Kaizen, K-A-I-Z-E-N, the Japanese term for continual improvement. We always want to make things better. We always want to learn, progressively elaborating. So that implies we're also updating our plans. We're updating our plans, we're updating our processes, making those improvements. And we could be doing that out at the end of the project. It's a very large, complex project. It's perhaps a DoD weapons systems project. the next generation fighter airplane, something succeeding the F-35. And what's one of the last things going to happen in the closing phases of this project? Transition. How long is transition going to take for most projects? Well, for my smaller projects, probably transitioning just took days, took maybe a week. But for a very large construction project or a DoD weapons project, how long's transitioning taking? Months and months and months, probably more than a year. It's never going to end. And what's going to happen in this transitioning part of the project? We're going to realize we need to make improvements and changes. We've got to provide for this airplane. We got to provide the Marines some more training, and the Navy wants some different documentation, and the Air Force wants something a little bit different. So we're all making changes and updates and improvements in these closing phases. I didn't say closing process, I said closing phases of the project. We could still be doing improvements, and we still need to do planning. Also, secondly, the reason we're doing planning out towards the end of the project is on purpose. We wait to do some of the planning out towards the end. So if you and your spouse have decided to remodel your kitchen and update the kitchen, what you're going to put together blueprints up front. You're going to decide on what types of appliances you want, what types of countertops you want, what types of floors, and so on. And you get all that done up front at the beginning. But can you plan out the punch list at the beginning? Can you plan out the walkthrough and how the final approvals are going to go? No. You're going to purposefully wait to do the punch list, to plan the walkthrough towards the end of the project. So oftentimes we are doing some of the planning out at the end of the project.